Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining. Today we're going to talk about how Unleash drives risk reduction and enhances development productivity at Wayfair. My name is Mark Quigley, and I'm an engineering leader at Wayfair. I lead engineering effectiveness globally. Currently enjoying Boston and New England in general. I'm a developer, a dad, a gamer, and my LinkedIn is there. All right, agenda-wise, we're going to spend a little bit of time to make sure to introduce you to Wayfair. We're going to talk about our specific use cases. We're going to go through the challenges that we face at Wayfair, and finally our solution. How did we resolve some of these folks or problems? Okay, so about Wayfair. We are a global e-commerce company focused exclusively on home, and we have a number of brands. Wayfair is the preeminent one that everyone will be familiar with, but we have a couple of sub-brands, and these are to target different segments of the economy. Collectively, Wayfair targets every segment and is our flagship. All right, use cases. So testing a feature. In the past, we had a singular monolith. And so to test that feature, you would deploy it, test it, and ultimately put it into production. Deployment was required to toggle any feature. So you had to go through a deployment cycle every time you wanted to turn a feature on, off, test some enhancement. Engineering hours spent to test features, and we had redundant and lengthy processes. This was not, as you can expect, an ideal state. So we built a feature toggle system in-house that allowed us to switch on or off any feature, deploying darkly, and it was production deployment friendly. So we could roll things in progress out into the world and hide them behind these feature toggles. In short, it was great. So where did this not hold out for very long? The challenges we faced. With the in-house solution, we experienced extremely rapid user growth, and this started to challenge the number of times toggles were being requested. We didn't have policies for new users, and by users here, we're talking about people adding toggles and or writing code that would read and draw from these toggles. And so the lack of policies meant that at first we had a very open system where anybody could change any toggle. We required patches to support new users, so we were constantly upgrading the system, trying to make it more capable, more performant. And it also induced a fairly large maintenance overhead on us. This homegrown system was becoming increasingly a large portion of the time we would spend on toilsome tasks. And nonetheless, it still had scalability concerns. With permissions and access, we had unregulated access across multiple teams, again, meaning any Wayfair employee could change any toggle. It was prone to human mistakes and misconfigurations because we didn't have toggles well segmented. They weren't categorized, they weren't tagged. Somebody would go in and say, I think this is the toggle I want to change, and in changing it, potentially cause an issue. And we lacked any history. Who was switching toggles? When? For what purpose? We didn't know. Our maintenance of the system was painful. Multiple iterations of maintenance for both components, both the system itself and the ways that we were embedding it. Longer maintenance duration. And that also caused slower feature propagation. Around 40 minutes it would take by the time you switched a toggle to the time that effect could be seen in our production system. This grew even more complex as we started to build APIs in the monolith and had a variety of clients using them, Java, Python, Rust, etc. Those clients now were interfacing through an API to get the toggle state, slowing it down even further. And as I said, that was onboarding non-PHP. So initially, we didn't have a way for non-PHP code bases to interact with the feature toggle system at all. And so again, the API was built that would surface toggle state and toggle changes, but that required more middleware for supporting those languages and the maintenance overhead of all that middleware as well. As you can see, our support burden was growing dramatically in a variety of different directions. So how did we do this? We switched off our homegrown system and switched on Unleashed. It's scalable, meaning we could grow both horizontally and vertically. It's high performance and resilient. The way Unleashed works through propagating the states out reduces the risk of failure if Unleashed itself goes down. It has all the server-side SDKs that we need for Python, Java, Go, Node, .NET, Rust, more. And it has all the client-side SDKs for JavaScript, Android, React. So really, Unleashed came out of the gate already everywhere we needed it to be. It already had advanced activation strategies, stickiness, gradual, IPs, location, date, time. And we were able to develop our own custom strategies and constraints. This really helped when we were keying off of specific identities or keys within Wayfair system that, of course, no public system could know about. And that was crucial because that was one of the features of our homegrown system that made people nervous about moving off of it. How will some other system know about the things we do that are custom and unique to us? Unleashed gave us the capability of adding those. So how did we implement Unleashed? First off, we initially started by deploying the server in regional clusters with a central database for all feature flag servers. Direct requests to Unleashed went from that server to all services. And this worked fairly well to begin with. Unleashed server is, again, scalable and resilient. The traffic we were deploying, everything worked here fairly well. But as we scaled up, we found a need to continue to optimize this solution. So Unleashed, the team released something called Unleashed Edge. What this does is put a read operation server close to your applications. It's extremely performant. It runs cached close, and it limits the query load on the actual core server, allowing even further scalability. So we implemented an architecture where we were putting Edge out far closer to our applications, and we were able to distribute Edge more broadly. Greatly enabled our horizontal scalability, made that a lot easier without having to worry about how do we, redeploy the entire server and everything else alongside it. And Edge also allows us to fail safe. So when we have high traffic through any particular service, that particular edge might fail. We haven't seen that yet, but if it did, the server is still up serving all the other edge instances, so we are limiting the blast radius of any particular point of failure. Again, it's probably worth calling out at this point that Unleash works well to make sure that current state is stored at the service level, edge level, and server level. So even if Unleashed Edge goes down, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a failure at the service levels. But again, this allowed us to limit the blast radius, which is huge when we're scaling across something the size of Wayfair. Let's see. Okay. Furthermore, high traffic on Unleashed Edge servers auto-scale fairly well over CPU, so there's vertical. And we could do fast restarts of Edge much, much faster than with the server itself. Only having to spin up Redis cache is very quick. We also were able to guardrail the Unleashed server itself, meaning that we could limit requests between Edge and server. Again, that's to limit blast radius. And we also got service mesh integration for handling a lot of those rate limits. Make sure that we weren't overwhelming the main server at any given point. So by the numbers, here's production metrics for Wayfair during some peak hours. We were serving flags in more than 4 clusters across different regions. And you can see that our RPS is up in the 16,000 range. This was during some of the earlier parts of implementing this. Recently, we've crossed 80,000 RPS, and the system is still held up just fine. So this is back in June, but just in August we crossed 80,000 RPS and having no issues. So you can see that our traffic is fairly spiky. It goes up and down, and this trends because, of course, few people are up in the middle of the night shopping for home goods. We love all our customers, so if you're one of those looking for new hand towels at 3 a.m., we've got just the ones for you. But most people are going to be shopping during the prime time of their day, and hence our traffic is very spiky. Edge helps us accommodate that by scaling up quickly when we need to, and down a bit. We choose to scale down slowly. It would scale down quickly if we wanted, but we scale down slowly as that volume drops. So that lets us manage our overall cloud spend in operation of Unleashed and Edge, and that's been a huge help. Total cost of ownership, cost estimation is for 36 months. You can see our homegrown system was spiraling out of control, at times moving up exponentially, at times linear, but never increasing logarithmically with scale. That's not something that I think is a healthy thing for platform teams. You should be able to achieve fairly logarithmic scale, meaning, of course, as your volume goes up, your support costs are going to go up, but they shouldn't be going up necessarily in a corresponding fashion. So Unleash is 3 times more cost efficient, and we see that, sublinear scaling, which is helpful. That means the system becomes more efficient as we increase scale. We get to take advantage of those economies of scale. And last but not least, Unleashed has really helped us innovate quickly. 400 projects rely on Unleashed flags to deploy features into production. We've got 3,500 flags and definitely growing configured on the clusters, and 2,200 feature flags actively used. So that means 3,500 plus are the total, meaning some in development, some in prod. 2,200 of them are being queried in prod as we go through those spiky volume changes. And we're getting about 50 new flags created a month across our teams. Sometimes that's higher, sometimes lower, but decent adoption and growth across all Wayfair teams, and the system is holding up. One thing that's not mentioned here, and I'll maybe include before I wrap up, we recently did a survey asking folks at Wayfair, would you recommend this product or not for all of the tools that we use? It should be noted that Unleashed ranks very high on that NPS. Our engineers like working with it. It's simple to engage with administratively, meaning creating toggles, the condition states that they activate on, activation states, and so forth. It's also easy to code against. How do I grab one of the SDKs and query the toggle state? Teams find both to be intuitive and easy, and it's well liked. Thanks for taking time to hear about how we solved our feature toggle problems with Unleashed, and we'll see y'all later.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. This was fantastic. It's a fantastic journey that you've been on. I really love the piece, and remember to unmute. Perfect. I really love the survey you mentioned. So you surveyed all your kind of the entire offering of all the dev tools that you support the team with?
Yes, we run a survey every 6 months that talks about a number of things. How are we providing good service? Are we supporting the teams? What's our engagement like? But we also do a tool review, and we, maybe not all, and there's some niche products, but anything major, we ask, what's your NPS on it? Would you recommend it?
That's super cool. And I guess you use that to also just kind of which tools you want to invest more in and which one you need to reevaluate maybe.
Yeah, and then it also kind of tells us, which tools are working well enough that we can sort of let them ride for a while. So we use a combination of qualitative and quantitative metrics, right? So the qualitative here are very high. We've been looking across our quantitative metrics, and that's led to all of our investment with Edge, and so we use both metrics to decide when to invest.
Cool. So from your presentation, how would you summarize the business case for introducing feature flags in the first place to a company like Wayfair?
Well, I think the business case is this. Anytime you've got more than a handful of people, 3, 4, working on the same code base, the last thing you want to do is encounter a lot of conflicts and synchronized release schedules. If we're looking at deploy velocity, and I know a number of your speakers today have talked about how their velocity went from quarterly to monthly to weekly to hundreds of times a day. Look, hundreds of times a day is the target. And you're not going to achieve that if you're trying to coordinate everybody who's trying to do anything at a particular hour, let alone day. Feature flags allow you to divorce the enablement of a feature from the release of the feature. And that separation is what gives you the ability to have that velocity. The business case is as simple as that. If you want to go fast, you need toggles.
But what are the kind of control mechanisms a company like Wayfair requires in terms of managing the enablement of features at scale?
Yeah, good question. Not only do we have all the normal controls, logging, auditing, that kind of stuff, we recently integrated, and I mean by recently, I mean in the last day or so, we finally got our system fully integrated with our central lock tool, which is how we stop deployments during critical times. So heavy sale days, obviously if there's any fires going on or something, for any reason we might want to stop engineers from just rolling things out carte blanche. Well, the challenge was previously we could block the actual deployments, but we had to just notify and trust people not to toggle features. And sometimes people would miss the notification and they'd be acting in good faith, but do the wrong thing. By integrating that with our central lock feature, we're now able to put a pause on those things as necessary. We try to do that as little as possible, but that's also been something we've been able to do. And our ability to integrate Unleash with all of these kinds of processes has been very important to us.
Super cool, super cool. In your journey, transition from the homegrown solution into Unleash, what was the key learnings from that process, specifically around kind of the scaling and the governance part of it?
Yeah, if anything, I would say one of the key learnings was just understanding how many dead, aged out toggles the old system had allowed us to accrue because there was no guardrails or governance around it whatsoever. There was nothing that would help us even be aware of it, let alone solve that problem. We're keeping all of our new Unleash stuff in a far healthier state. The toggle too far gone is likely a ticking time bomb, and that's not anything to do with whatever toggle system you're using. It's just the nature of them. And so keeping that clean is a lot easier now, but we were shocked at how deep that tech debt was.
Yeah, I have to share some numbers with you because obviously we are able to look at these numbers across all companies using Unleash. It's amazing how easy it is to create flags and how hard it is to remove them again. And our numbers tells us that it seems to be that companies acquire around, so 5 developers will create 1 flag per month on average. That's kind of the growth rate. The same number of developers will only remove less than one, they will not even remove a flag on average every month. So for every 20 flag you combine, you will remove 1 flag. And obviously this is scaring me over time because obviously we know that's technical debt piling up. And this is something that we are really working hard on understanding better. How can we help companies like yourself? How can we make it even easier to detect flags you probably don't need anymore? And how can we help you doing the proper cleanup process? Because you probably need to do more than just disabling the flag. You need to actually go into the code and remove that code piece from the actual application before you can remove the flag from Unleash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have any processes in place, and how do you actually follow up on the teams other than kind of trusting them to take this responsibility on their own?
Yeah, we use some of the, we think of them as NAG features. I'm not sure what the official feature is called. But we use some of those to keep it at least at front of mind for engineers on when flags are starting to age out and need to be removed. And I appreciate the ability to type different flags differently so that those reminders will come up as appropriate. Sometimes that's never, but often it's a little bit more rapidly. What I'd love to look into in the future, we haven't done this yet, is looking if we could automate some of that removal by combining, say, a generative AI service that knew how to manipulate the code, have that receive the alert, and see if it could automatically take it out and propose a PR to a team.
Yeah, you can actually also achieve that with static code analysis today. It's not easy, it's not trivial, but it's possible, and there are teams working on that in these days. And this is also something that we are obviously very interested in learning more about. How can we automatically at least propose a pull request to the team? Maybe there should be a developer actually validating and running all the tests and all of that, but still it will take away some of the manual labor. And I think that is just a natural next step of what we can offer, obviously.
I hear a partnership brewing.
Cool. Thank you so much, Mark. This was fantastic. I think we should allow the audience to have a bigger break this time, and we will be back in 9 minutes. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.